In the dark of night, a giant sits alone upon the Iron Throne. Blackfire rests across his knees. Behind him, unseen in the shadow, coils the greatest dragon in the world. And there is no one else in the hall. There is never anyone else. Aegon the Conqueror forged this throne from 1,000 swords so that no man who sat it should ever rest easy. His gentle son inherited it and could not hold it. And now it belonged to a man who had taken it the only way he knew, by strength. A man who ruled with nothing but fire and fear. He had claimed his crown over a dead man's body. He would nearly die for it before his reign was a day old. And in the 6 years that followed, he would burn holy men at their prayers, feed a queen's heart to his dogs, and slaughter his own blood without blinking. He was a warrior without equal, and a king without mercy. History would remember him by a single name: Maegor, the first of his name. Maegor the Cruel. Maegor took the crown of his father, the Iron Crown of the Conqueror, set with blood-red rubies. But the throne was far from won. His capital was in the hands of the faith. 700 warriors' sons in silvered steel held the city walls and the fortified sept atop the hill of Rhaenys. And they did not mean to bend the knee to an abomination. So the Dowager Queen Visenya threw down a challenge. Let any man who questioned her son's right prove it with his body. The knights answered with an ancient rite, a trial of 7. 7 champions against 7. But Maegor stood alone. His brother had taken the Kingsguard to Dragonstone, and no knight would step forward for the Abomination King. Until one man did. No knight at all. A common man-at-arms named Dick Bean. "I've been a king's man since I was a boy," he said. "I mean to die a king's man." Shamed, 4 knights followed. Then the 7 met the 7, and the yard became a slaughter. When it was done, Maegor stood alone against the last 2 warriors' sons, and even as they fell, one dealt him a blow that cracked his helm and dropped him like a dead man. Many thought the king slain. His mother pulled off the broken helm. "The king breathes," she said. "The king lives." But he did not wake. For 27 days, Maegor lingered at the edge of death, and no maester's craft could rouse him. Then a ship came from Pentos, bearing a pale, raven-haired woman named Tiana of the Tower, a tavern dancer risen to courtesan, and rumored a poisoner and a sorceress. Visenya dismissed the maesters and gave her son into Tiana's hands. The next morning, Maegor rose with the sun. He had been saved not by the gods and not by any maester, but by dark arts. And the first thing he did was make the faith pay. Barely healed, King Maegor mounted Balerion, the Black Dread, and flew to the hill of Rhaenys. 700 warriors' sons were at their morning prayers inside their fortified sept when the dragonfire came. As the building blazed, archers and spearmen waited outside for any man who came bursting through the doors. It was said the screams of the burning men could be heard across the whole city, and a pall of smoke hung over King's Landing for days. Thus did the cream of the warriors' sons meet their fiery end. But the war against the faith had only begun. The poor fellows rose in their thousands, ragged zealots with axes. At Bitterbridge, and again at the Great Fork of the Blackwater, they met the king's armies, and each time Balerion decided the day. The rivers ran red for leagues. Then Visenya took wing on Vhagar, and Maegor on Balerion, and together they burned the castles of every pious lord who had defied them, across the Riverlands and the west. At last the dragons turned south, toward Old Town and the Starry Sept, and the High Septon who had named Maegor Abomination. The greatest city in Westeros braced to burn. But in the blackest hour of that night, the High Septon, a strong man of 53 in robust health, suddenly mysteriously, died. Some said he took his own life. Some said the gods struck him down. Others whispered of poison and of a sorceress queen. The truth will never be known. But by dawn the gates of Old Town stood open, and a new high septon was raised up, 90 years old, blind, and feeble, who was only too pleased to bless Maegor as king. The surviving warriors' sons were given a choice: take the black and go to the wall, or die. 3/4 chose the wall. The rest were beheaded, and the 7 highest-born, Maegor took their heads himself with black fire. The faith was broken. But Maegor still had one enemy that fire could not burn away: his own blood. By every law the Conqueror himself had affirmed, the Iron Throne belonged not to Maegor, but to his nephew, Aegon, the son of King Aenys, the rightful heir. And Aegon the Uncrowned had not forgotten. While Maegor lingered in Old Town, the young prince and his wife Rhaena slipped into King's Landing, hidden beneath sacks of corn. They had not come for the throne. With so few men, they could never hold it. They had come for the dragons. They left the city on dragonback, flying side by side, Rhaena on Dreamfire and Aegon on his father's dragon, Quicksilver. In the west, 15,000 men rallied to the Uncrowned, and Aegon marched on King's Landing to claim his birthright. But near the God's Eye, the king's armies closed on him from every side. Aegon mounted Quicksilver to lead the charge himself, and then his men below cried out and pointed to the southern sky. King Maegor had come, on Balerion. For the first time since the Doom of Valyria, dragon fought dragon in the sky. It was no contest. Quicksilver was a quarter Balerion's size. Her pale fire swallowed whole in gouts of black flame. The black dread fell on her from above, closed his jaws around her neck, and tore one wing from her body. Screaming and smoking, the young dragon plunged to earth, and Prince Aegon fell with her. By day's end, 2,000 of his men lay dead, against 100 of the king's. And Maegor, who had slain his own nephew, the rightful king, was now a kinslayer. Far away, at Pink Maiden, Rhaena learned that her husband was dead. She heard it in stony silence. "Will you not weep?" they asked her. "I do not have the time for tears," she said. Then she took her infant daughters and fled, to Fair Isle and beyond her uncle's reach. Maegor was unbeatable. His throne was secure. And now he wanted the one thing that strength could not seize: a son. Back in King's Landing, Maegor took personal charge of the castle his brother had begun, the Red Keep. He tore down finished work and started anew. Secret passages and hidden tunnels crept through the depths of Aegon's high hill, and at the heart of it all he raised a castle within the castle, a fortified redoubt ringed by a dry moat lined with iron spikes, known ever after as Maegor's Holdfast. Men said Maegor ruled the 7 kingdoms, but that he himself was ruled by 3 queens: his mother, Visenya, his paramour, Alice, and the Pentashi witch, Tiana. They called her the Mistress of Whisperers, the king's raven. It was said she spoke with rats and spiders, and that every vermin in the city came to her by night to tell tales of any fool who dared speak against the king. Nothing was said in King's Landing that Tiana did not hear. At last, in the 45th year after the conquest, the Red Keep was finished. To celebrate, the king feasted the builders and workmen who had raised it. Wagon loads of strong wine and sweetmeats, and whores from the city's finest brothels. The revels lasted 3 days. And when they were done, the king's knights moved in and put every last workman to the sword. No man who knew the castle's secrets would live to speak them. Their bones were buried beneath the very stones they had laid. Maegor had built himself a fortress no enemy could breach. But the thing that would destroy him was already growing, in the wombs of his own wives. Then at last came the news the king had craved. Queen Alice was with child. The court rejoiced. But 3 moons early, the labor pains took her, and what she birthed was not a son. It was a monster, stillborn, with twisted limbs, a great swollen head, and no eyes. "This cannot be my son," the king roared. His grief turned to fury. He beheaded the midwife, the septas, the grand maester who had tended her, and he was seated on the iron throne with the maester's head still in his hands when Tiana came to tell him the truth. The child was not his seed. Fearing a barren queen's fate, Alice had gone to her father, the king's hand, and on the nights Maegor lay with his other wives, they had sent a parade of men to her bed. 20 men of proven potency, to get her a child she could pass off as the king's. Maegor called Tiana a jealous barren witch and hurled the maester's head at her. "Spiders do not lie," she said, and she handed him a list. What followed was slaughter. House Harroway was wiped from the earth. The hand was flung from the top of his tower to shatter on the stones. His kin were thrown onto the spikes of Maegor's dry moat, some taking days to die. And Queen Alice herself was given to Tiana. Her dying took a fortnight, and afterward her body was cut into 7 pieces and mounted above the 7 gates of the city. When the king returned from butchering the last of the Harroways, worse news waited. His mother, Queen Visenya, was dead, and in the chaos, his brother's widow Alyssa had fled Dragonstone, taking her children, the dragons Vermithor and Silverwing, and the sword Dark Sister. Robbed of his prey, Maegor turned on a boy. His nephew, Prince Viserys, Aenys's son, just 15, and the king's own squire, was thrown into a black cell. "He may not know where his mother has gone," a knight protested. "Then let him die," the king answered. "Perhaps the bitch will turn up for his funeral." The boy knew nothing. After 9 days of torment, he died. His body was left in the castle yard for a fortnight, so his mother might come and claim it. She never came, and the whole realm wept for him. Maegor had drowned every enemy in blood, and still he was cursed. Still he had no son. A king must have an heir. And so Maegor's counselors urged him to take a new wife. He took 3, all of them widows. Lady Jane Westerling, Lady Eleanor Costane, whose husband the king had beheaded on a false charge just 7 days before, and his own niece Rena, the widow of Aegon the Uncrowned, the nephew he had killed. The people of King's Landing called them the Black Brides. Rena was forced back to the Red Keep to wed the man who had slain her husband. Her one hope had been to keep her twin daughters hidden, until Tiana appeared, leading 2 silver-haired girls by the hand. "You were foolish to think you could hide them from me." Rena spoke her vows in a voice as cold as ice. 2 of the brides grew heavy with child, and hope stirred once more. And once more it ended in horror. Queen Jane was brought to bed early of another monster, a thing with no arms and no legs. The mother did not survive it either. Now the king turned on Tiana. Dragged to the dungeons, the sorceress did not wait for the torturers. She confessed. She had poisoned the children in the womb, Alice's child and Jane's, and Eleanor's, she promised, would be the same. Maegor cut the heart from her chest with blackfire and fed it to his dogs. But even in death, Tiana kept her word. The moon turned and turned again, and Queen Eleanor was delivered of a stillborn boy, eyeless, and born with the stubs of wings. It was the 48th year after the conquest, and now no man in all the 7 kingdoms could doubt it. The king was accursed. After that, whatever followers still remained to Maegor began to melt away like dew in the morning sun. The outlawed faith rose again. Dornishmen gathered in the passes. And then came the worst blow of all, from Storm's End. There, Lord Rhaegar Baratheon proclaimed young Jaehaerys Targaryen, Aenys's last son, the true and rightful king. He was but 14, and he did not come alone. Maegor has only one dragon, Lord Rogar told the Stormlords. Our prince has two. Jaehaerys rode Vermithor. His sister Alysanne rode Silverwing. And soon, 3. For Rhaena mounted Dreamfire and flew to join him, abandoning the uncle she had been forced to wed. She took her daughter, and Blackfire itself, stolen from the king's own scabbard as he slept. One by one, the great houses turned. The Valyrians took the royal fleet. The Tyrells, the Hightowers, the Lannisters, the Arryns, all declared for the boy king. Maegor woke each morning to find himself weaker than the night before. He gathered a handful of lesser lords in the Red Keep to plan a war he could not win. When one dared suggest he abdicate and take the Black, the king struck off his head on the spot and finished the war council with the man's head mounted on a lance behind the Iron Throne. It was the hour of the wolf when at last he let them go. The king remained behind, brooding alone upon the throne of swords. Lord Towers and Lord Rosby were the last men to see Maegor Targaryen alive. When dawn broke, the last of his queens came seeking him. Eleanor found the king still upon the Iron Throne, pale and dead. His robes soaked through with blood. His arms had been slashed open from wrist to elbow on the throne's jagged barbs, and a blade had gone through his neck. How he died, no one can say. Was it the throne itself that cuts the man not worthy to sit it? Was it Eleanor avenging the husband he had killed? The Kingsguard acting as one? A shadow through some secret passage of his own making? Or did the cruelest king in history, alone in the dark, simply open his own veins rather than face defeat? The Red Keep has its secrets, the maesters wrote, known only to the dead. The reign of Maegor the Cruel lasted 6 years and 66 days. He died childless and left no heir of his body. And the throne he had seized by strength passed at last to a 14-year-old boy. His name was Jaehaerys. And after a conqueror and 2 catastrophes, Westeros was about to meet the greatest king it would ever know. Next time on Fire and Blood, the Old King and the Golden Age. If you want to see how a broken, bleeding realm was made whole again, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next.